Good afternoon, I am Pete, also known as Risk for Rewards, or over on Twitter at Risk for Rewards. Got about 17,500 followers over there. We've got a fair few on TikTok, which I started yesterday, and we've got coming up to 1,500 here on YouTube. So thank you for everyone who follows, and if you're not following already, if you click subscribe down at the bottom, it just means every time that my content comes live, you'll get it straight away before anyone else, and before I get the chance to tweet it or anything later on in the day. Obviously today, I'm actually recording this on Friday morning before the racing. Last year on the Friday I had 4 winners and forecasts, so hopefully go through the card again today. If you're watching this and I haven't gone through on the card on the day on Friday, I can only apologise. At the end of the day, all I'm doing is telling you what I'm backing. Anyway, so as you can see, I am pretty buzzing, ready for Saturday's Grand National. I'm going to run through as quick as I can of the National itself. I'm just going to give you one line on each horse and just be like, yes, no, can't win, can't stay, won't stay, soft ground, one sentence. So yeah, if you really want to frame me saying this horse can't win because I've cut it down to one line, and when it clearly hacks up by 20 lengths, that's clearly up to you. But I'm just trying to be as brutal as possible because there's 40 runners. If you want my full in-depth analysis, that's already been done, and that's already on my YouTube channel and has been live. It's had over 5,000 views, so it's obviously gone down quite well. All comments are appreciated if you've got comments. So the comments for today, if you can put them down at the bottom, who's going to win the Grand National? Who is your top 3? So list me the 1, 2, 3 for the National. I've narrowed it down to what I believe is 6. One of them is around 100 to 1 shot, so I'm calling it 5. And I will give all of those today. They're not going to change. They are my selections. But I will give my opinion on all of those. My blog will be released Friday evening, so tonight, and that will have my full analysis of all 40 of the runners, whether it be one sentence or whether it be 10 sentences. I've obviously gone into more depth on the runners that I believe have the strongest chances, but the reason I'm putting content out is so that you can make your own decision. The National is the most important race of the year to make your own decision, because at the end of the day, there's 40 runners. We all have that one chance where you've got just as much chance as anybody else of picking the winner. I've been stood there on track. I've been to Aintree for the Grand National probably 8 of the last 10 years, and I've been stood there on track and I've backed 5 horses. None of them have won. And then I've had a text message come through saying, how much have I won, mate? And it's my mum telling me, and I'm just like, brilliant. And obviously she knows nothing about racing. She just loves the Grand National, picks the colours just like everyone else, and you've got just as good a chance as everyone else. So don't let anyone else, don't sit there and read if I put up my 5 picks and say they're the 5 I've got to pick because he thinks he knows what he's talking about. Not the case whatsoever. Make your own choice. That's why the content's there. Anyway, enough for the waffling. Let's get to the racing on Saturday. So straight off the bat, we're going into the Mag Hill Novices Chase, the 2-miler. Before we start, just going to emphasise one thing. Last year, I was at the Grand National and I went in there thinking we are going to absolutely have a bean up. We went in, I thought Edward Stone was a short price. He was going to hack up. Flora and Porter, easy repeat on the cards. Sham Blue, one of the best handicap horses in training. I was like, bang, 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 this is going to be an easy day. Just to put a little bit of context to that, Edward Stone turned over by Gentle Demi on a going day. Sham Blue was very well handicapped, but got caught by a well handicapped horse on his going day who hasn't won since. And I can't even think of who I just mentioned. Flora and Porter, obviously chinned by this year's Stayers Herder winner, Cider Burley, who was average at Cheltenham and then was much better here and won at a massive price, overturning Flora and Porter. So all I'm saying is, to put this into a little bit of light, is the fact of, just don't go nuts. This isn't Cheltenham. Do you really want to go steaming in here at John Bon at 1 to 3, 1 to 4, whatever he's going to be at? It's hard to not see him being the most likely winner, but a lot of different horses, Cheltenham affects different runners in different ways. Not long till May's got the form, obviously, behind Stage Star. That has not been franked with Stage Star flopping, but I'd put that more down to his Cheltenham exertions rather than the fact that he suddenly turned into a bad horse overnight. So not long till May is a fair yardstick. Obviously, if you stop the race at the 2-mile point, was going one of the best in that race. So dropping back and trip may well suit, but I think also they've come here for some nice prize money and an easy touch, because you look at this race and it really does lack depth. Calico's been beautifully positioned once more, second behind John Bon, picking up nice money in a 2-runner race. Then goes and picks up a victory for himself and for connections in a 5-runner event, beating Pay the Piper. and then comes here. And obviously, if you can come here and you could pick up in the place money, like, you're absolutely laughing. It's 67 grand to the winner today. So if John Bond flops, you've got the likes of Not Long Till May and Calico fighting it out for a Group 1, and 67 grand. Like, this is brilliant placing for these horses. So for me, it'll be, obviously Banbridge will be a non-runner, and then it'll be between those three. It'll be Calico, Not Long Till May, and John Bond. So Calico and Not Long Till May connections will be thinking, we've got a big chance to land some prize money. So they will not want to be taking John Bond on and getting into a fight with him, because they can get into a nice place in second. So I'd expect this probably to be a cakewalk for John Bond. Do I need to back him at 4-11 or 1-3? No, I don't. But at the same time, it'd be disappointing if he's not getting it done. It's just a bit of a cop-out from Nicky Henderson when he was like, oh yeah, the step up and triple really suit. Because now, even if he wins here, they will have learnt nothing. So coming into the start of next year, they'll be like, well, do we step him up for the Ryanair just because we know he can't win the Champion Chase? Me personally, I think John Bond's found his level. I don't think he'll be a Cheltenham winner, whatever the trip is. I just think he'll always find at least 1-2 good. But obviously races like this, when he's not got too much to beat, I'd expect him to go on and win here. Right then, on to the 225. So this is the Village Hotels Handicap Hurdle. So one that I do want to put up here is Mexico. Currently, I got 18-1, and I think you probably get between 12s and 16s currently, if I've read that right. The reason is because of Stuart Edmonds' runners at this meeting. He's got such a strong record. Off the top of my head, obviously I do this with no stats or figures. I've just been writing the blog though. I think it's 4 out of the 7. 4 out of the 7 of his runners at this meeting have finished in the first 2, and that's despite price. So they could be 33-1 shots. More importantly, he won this race 2 years ago with Hometown Boy. Comes here with a very similar profile. This horse is just getting in a little bit of a lighter weight. Obviously could end up over bet, so could end up a single figure price because of his record when people start looking at this race. But currently had some good form as a novice, stepped into handicap company, and then hasn't been given a hard time. So just plodded around in the back of many fields, and then out of absolutely nowhere, conveniently on the 1st of April, his RPRs so far this season were 119, 122, 113, and then suddenly he throws in a 137. So he's gone from 113 to 137, obviously achieving £25 increase in ability from the 11th of March to the 1st of April. So it's quite convenient that he's obviously done that, and he's gone from a mark of 122 to 129, giving him a £7 rise, which I see as quite convenient, because that £7 rise then gets him into a race such as this on a low weight. So to me, obviously he may just turn out that is his ceiling, and he might not be any better than that. But it would not surprise me if he's got more to come. And those sort of levels, he's getting in here off a featherweight of 10-10. And you look at some of the market leaders, so like the likes of Good Time Johnny. Johnny achieved an RPR of 148, and he's now running off 12 stone. So Mexico will be getting he'll be getting £18 off that horse, and he's on 1-3. His RPR was 137. So basically, if Mexico ran to the same level, if he ran to a 137 and Good Time Johnny ran to a 148, then Mexico would finish in front of him. So obviously these races aren't ran on paper and ratings and stuff, and obviously you could argue, is that a fluke the other way for Mexico? Me personally, I think they've done it where they've had to show a little bit of their hand in order to get into this race. Hopefully he's got more to come. He's getting here off a featherweight. This jockey trainer combination have struck well here in the past. You're going to get the extra places. I think he's definitely a play for me, and I've already backed him. The others that are on the top of my list, I haven't finalised yet. I like to get my first one in, bang, done, and then I look for a few. Honestly, you wouldn't believe the time that I take on some of these races. Sometimes it takes me 20 minutes. Sometimes I could be here for hours looking through different levels of form. Just because I don't put loads of content up all the time, it doesn't mean that I'm not looking through every single runner. The two that of interest of me is West Balboa of the Skeltons. Harry and Dan Skelton's record and handicap hurdles throughout the whole season is incredible, but here at Aintree it's even better. Again, I haven't got the stats to hand, but they are in the blog. You can already read those now. And the other horse that I really like is the horse that won for me last year, which was Party Business. He not just won last year, he absolutely hacked up 11-2. He only won by 3/4 of a length from I like the way you're thinking, but 12 lengths back from that was Mill Green, and then 16 lengths was Beauport, who obviously has done well since, 30 lengths back to Course Soreen. So the first 4 going back to fifth place, there was almost 30 lengths from him to fifth. So whilst the second place horses got close, the rest were absolutely nowhere near. So he absolutely hacked up that day. He hacked up that day off a mark of 132, comes here off a mark of 137. So he's actually only gone up £5. The negative is the fact that Charlie Todd was claiming £3 that day, and Charlie Todd will be riding again but can't claim anymore. So the negative for that is obviously he's technically, even though he's only up £4, he's then lost his £3 claim, so he's up £7. Would £7 have stopped him from winning? It may have stopped him from winning against the second place horse, but take the second place horse out and he's beaten the others 10 lengths. So I think he has to go here with a strong chance. A lot will depend on price and race conditions tomorrow, but he's definitely on the short list. I just want to see at least over 10-1. But yeah, main selection. My only selection so far is Mexico, but West Balboa and Party Business are the top of my short list so far. But I do have to nail it down. Right, onto the Mersey Novices hurdle, so 2 mile 4. I obviously said about Hermes Allen for the 3 miler, and I thought that would have been a great bet. Obviously, especially as we know that he's going to step up in trip next year and he's going to be a 3 mile chaser. I haven't lost my faith in him, despite that was a very poor finishing effort. Don't get me wrong, the Challow ran on bottomless ground and it was an absolute bog that day, and I was half surprised that Nichols didn't pull him out. I was very glad he didn't, because obviously he was a winning selection and I'd had a good bet on him, and that form got Frank When You Wear It Well went and won the Mare's Novice hurdle. Didn't just win it, she absolutely hacked up. I'm hoping that potentially he ran his poor effort there and you'll see much better from him here. The thing is, I don't want to say he's my selection yet, and he isn't my selection. I haven't backed him because I want to see how the rest of Nichols runners get on. Like, Nichols normally has a quiet Cheltenham and a really good Aintree, but he had 2 winners at Cheltenham, and he's had plenty of good runners and ran some good horses there. So the gamble for this horse was remarkable at Cheltenham, 11-2 into 9-4 against Impere Pass and some very good horses. So there's clearly plenty thought of this horse, and if he flops again today or doesn't win today, then I definitely won't be losing hope. It'll just make him a bigger price if he goes for the Brown Advisory. Obviously, the other thing is how Stay Away Faye gets on today in the Sefton will indicate who's going to Brown Advisory. Who will one of them go Stay as Hurdle? Who knows? So, but likely those two look like they have strong chances. So Hermes Allen, if running to the 154 in the Challow, would win 4 of the last 5 of these. The only one he wouldn't win would be the one that My Drogo won, and he'd only need £1 or 2 of improvement. If he runs to his 139 at Cheltenham, then he's not got a hope against some of these. So he's got a strong chance. It's just how you think he bounced out of Cheltenham. Dark Raven has needed this step up and trip for a while. My worry with him would be, is it too little too late? Not the fact that he's suddenly become a bad horse, it's the fact that he's been beaten 9 lengths by Elite Thompson and Mersey National, and he's beginning to look exposed. He just doesn't have the real potent finishing effort for me. You Wear It Well has done nothing wrong. That one defeat this season was to Hermes Allen, but she has got enough racing under her belt now. This will be her 5th run. And you look at the way at Fairyhouse, the horses that finished behind Astro Diamond, I think they finished 4th, 5th, 6th, and then the rest were pulled up of horses and they ran to nowhere near the level that they showed in the Mare's Novice. I think that was a grueling race under the conditions. The weather was awful, it was soft ground. So could she bounce out and go again? She may well do, because obviously she ran second in the Challow, and then she ran again at Cheltenham, and she showed no ill effects. In fact, no, she actually went to Sandown and then ran again at Cheltenham and showed no effects. So maybe she'll just bounce out once more, but she has got to improve to take this. And I think she'll set the race up nicely by going off from the front. It's just whether Hermes Allen takes her on or whether just lets her go. They'll see it that she's getting the easy lead, but I don't think they'll give her an easy lead this time. But she should set the race up beautifully because it allow the closers. Irish Point skipped the festival. Brilliant form prior to the festival when obviously splitting the likes of Mersey National and Astro Diamond, only just finishing behind Champ Kylie, so Group 1 placed twice, but was very poor at the Dublin Racing Festival when ran no race. Comes here as a fresh horse, had a little pipe opener, winning 1-4. Not written off, but just not a horse for me. Springbell Bay looked to promise plenty, but I just haven't seen too much of it. So people are wondering, why have I talked about so many? Right, this is one that does interest me, and that's Let's Be Clear About It. So Let's Be Clear About It seems to have been brought to the Boyle slow time with a couple of, all his efforts so far have been over 3 miles, when finishing behind Hidden Valley Lake, 8 lengths, and then 5 lengths behind Stay Away Faye. But if you look at the Albert Bartlett turning in, Let's Be Clear About It is one of the few that are still on the bridle. and travelling beautifully. And then when the others just got away from him, they were just like, okay, see you later, I'll let you go. And it was given quite an easy ride into the finish. So I think this drop back and trip will suit, and not is not one to be overlooked at a double figure price. I think around that currently, in fact, I'll actually look. I think it's about 12s to 16s to 1. That's not the right race. Apologies. 2 seconds. We are looking at, yeah, 11 and 12 to 1. So that just one to have on your radar. Obviously, I haven't nailed down my selections. I haven't even looked at the stats to see what points to what. But let's be clear about it. It is one that a dark horse and the outsider, as is Cool Survivor. This horse will get overlooked by, I'd imagine, pretty much everybody. And yet at Cheltenham, every single person wanted to back it. It was the talk of the town. It had very progressive profile, had finished actually in front of Let's Be Clear About It, over 3 miles when finishing behind Hidden Valley Lake. Ran a stormer behind Goodland when finishing fourth over 22 furlongs, but just completely bombed over 2 mile 4 in the Martin Pipe. Sent off the 5 to 1 joint favourite, and for whatever reason just ran no race whatsoever. Wasn't seen in the race. You were like, okay, well, what's happened there? There's no explanation afterwards, and we really don't know why he ran to that level. But if he bounces back to his 140 RPRs, yeah, okay, there's a few in here now. Like, let's be clear about arguably he's now achieving 147, so he's actually improved passing. I just think if he drifts out to a big price, like currently we're looking at 16s, but still going outwards. If you start looking at 20s or 25s, it's just not one that you want to overlook. So at the moment, my shortlist for this race: Cool Survivor, Let's Be Clear About It, and obviously Hermes Allen. Let's Be Clear About It, I will definitely be backing, and it's just whether I back Hermes Allen or not. And also Cool Survivor, I'd want to see a bigger price than 16s. Right, so on to the Liverpool Hurdle. Stayers, as I said, going into Cheltenham, it's just an absolute mess. Every few years we get an absolute monster, and then everyone loves it and it becomes the people's horse, because the division is always so windy and so average, which means that when we do get a star of it, it just completely dominates it for such a long period of time. We had the big bucks, you had Thistlecrack, and we've had Paisley Park, and they just destroy the lot. Like Thistlecrack was brilliant, and obviously Big Bucks needs no introduction. The problem is here is when we don't have a star, we just have a lot of. It's such a division that's so hard to dominate. So you just look through and you think, who's going to win that? Like, put it this way: meet and greet wouldn't be for me. He's had his chances in Ireland and he's finished behind many of these. So you're looking at 3, 4, 5, top 6. Dashel Drasher had an incredibly hard race in the Stayers, and I think that was his chance. But at the same time, he's had incredibly hard races all season, and he still seems to bounce back again and again and again. But this is his 6th run. He loves coming second. Obviously, he's come second 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 of his last 5 runs. So could he run a massive race? Yeah, he could. But at the same time, he's sent off 40 to 1 for the Stayers, and he's now going to be close to 7 to 8 to 1. Do I want to back him? No, I really don't. So who had the best credentials at the Stayers Hurdle? I think Cider Burley, although I understand he won this race last year, so it's hard to say, how can you say that he doesn't have a chance? He does, of course he has a chance. But at the same time, he's coming here at 5 to 1 when he was sent off, I think he was sent off about 33s last year. No, he was sent off 16 to 1, so there was money from last year. He was sent off 16 to 1 last year. Okay, he out-battled and he won the Stayers, brilliant. However, he's an 11-year-old. So can you really bounce back? Like, obviously, he finished 10 lengths behind Blazing Cow in February to then win that Gruler in the Stayers. But then a month later, as an 11-year-old, can you really see him achieving the same sort of mark and the same rating, the same runs, the same form? Me personally, I think he's one just knock off the list. I'm not saying he can't, so if he was to win, I wouldn't be surprised. But you've got to be brutal when you're trying to knock down 6, and I just think that was one hell of an effort. And you take that effort out and you look at his form figures of his last 6 runs, and he's like 4th, 5th, pulled up 4th, and his highest RPR is 156. That's just not high enough here. That was a freak of a performance, but I also think that race was an absolute mess. I think the 2 to take out of that race was Floor and Porter and Home by the Lee. The reason I think Floor and Porter was one to take out of it is because he'd been off 3 months. Going into the festival last year, he'd had a beautiful prep and he had 3 months off, and he went there and he was primed to the yin yang, and he ran to it, but before that, in December, he ran to a 166. At the festival, he ran to a 166. So both his form levels were exactly the same. Whereas I thought he looked nothing like the same horse currently going into the festival. So he'd achieved RPRs that were lower, and he even achieved an RPR in the festival that was lower than what's expected. But I just thought he jumped and travelled very well. It was just coming into his final finish, it just wasn't like it was okay. So to me, it was, if they've left some to work on, he has a chance to go one better. If they haven't, then he's going to run the same again. The downside for him here is I backed Flooring Porter and I watched him pain when at 11 to 8 last year at the festival, and I just thought this is a track that leaves you very vulnerable. He's a horse that will be very prominent or front running, and it just leaves you vulnerable to anything coming from behind. And that's what happened with Cider Burley. Like, Danny Mullins had to be spot on at every hurdle, and he was. But Cider Burley could pick and choose. He just left a dartboard on his back. So if he comes on for his run, I think he's a player here. I wouldn't write him off. But again, he's much for muchness, as you can see. Another thing to note here is I would not be in a rush. Apologies. Another thing to note is I would not be in a rush to back any of these right now, because at the moment it's like a blanket 4-1 field. Whereas, in fact, I'll just tell you what it is. Whereas come this evening or come tomorrow, a lot of these will start to drift down. So yeah, so Flooring Porter has his chance, but I'd rather have him over Cider Burley, put it that way. An interesting horse, really interesting horse, is another one who comes here again after 3 months off, was Home by the Lee. So Home by the Lee, while Flooring Porter was finishing in behind, Home by the Lee actually seems to have improved this year. And Home by the Lee obviously won both his trials in November and December, and he could well be the one that gets his redemption here. Like, he made it in that race at Cheltenham, there was plenty that he did wrong. He made a mistake. He ended up out in the car park. He came back round. You were like, where are you off to? And at one stage, after he'd made his mistake, you were thinking he was going to get pulled up, and then suddenly he was coming with a run again. And the problem is there, though, is just like all of these, like none of these were given an easy ride. Like Dashel Drasher, Cider Burley, Flooring Porter, and Home by the Lee. It wasn't like a handicap ride or a Group 1 where my chances beat, because of how close they all finished. Like, there was 3 3/4 lengths between first to fifth, and because they all finished in a heap, the problem is none of them were given an easy ride. The bonuses for Home by the Lee and Flooring Porter over the others is the fact that they've had 3 months off. So if they come on for it, then they could go one better. So Home by the Lee, I don't think is one to write off. Do you want to back him is another question. And he'd be out of the stayers. Home by the Lee would be I think the race will suit him best. And then, so now we come on to the 2 fresh horses. So 2 fresh horses we've got here. I say 2 fresh horses. Fresh would probably be lukewarm. One fresh horse is Champ. So Champ has achieved numbers very similar to what we would take to win this. I'll just go down and have a look. So the winner of this has achieved actually lower than I expected. 160, 163, 161, 160, 164. So Cider Burley actually put in the highest in the last few years, but on average you're looking at anywhere between 160 and 163 to win this. So Champ's put in a 162 when fresh in November, beating Paisley Park. I think this track will suit him perfectly, but he was well beaten by both Flooring Porter and Cider Burley in this last year. Henderson's made no secret about the horse needs to be fresh, and he comes here fresh, so he will have a strong chance. I think if there's ever a chance for him to win a big Group 1 on the big day with all of these horses, some of these aren't going to have their finishing effort, whereas he will have. The question is just, as an 11-year-old, are there horses that are just generally better than him now? And arguably, you'd like to hope so. Like, some of these have got age on their side, whereas Champ doesn't. And whilst he'll be absolutely primed to peak here, I just think there could be 1 or 2 better than him. Again, he's on the shortlist just because he comes here fresh. I'd rather back him than Cider Burley and the like. So the one horse that I have obviously not mentioned yet, and I say comes here fresh, I say she comes here fresh just because she ran so badly that she ran no race whatsoever, is Marie's Rock. Like, what that was in the mares is just still baffling me now. Like, the first thing you'd say is, why on earth did you let them dictate from the front? Like, Love Envoy dictated from the front at an absolute crawl. So it suited him, knowing that the others probably wanted a faster pace, and it suited her, and it suited Honeysuckle because she's a champion hurdler. She literally was just like, "This is brilliant. You're giving me a nice slow toe, and I'm just going to burn them off." And that's exactly what she did. The only competition she had was the front two. The other race, every single horse behind, you can just throw in the bin. So, but Marie's, the bonus for that is Marie's Rock ran no race. So it was literally like just having a prep run. And you look at the rest of her form, and that is a huge anomaly. Like, because all of the rest of her form, she has been so consistent. She won last year in after she was pulled up in January. She then went on to win in February, March, and April. And obviously, the March and April was winning both the Mares Novices at Cheltenham and Punchestown, so at the highest level. So she is top draw. There is no arguing that whatsoever. And she was fancied by many for the Stayers Hurdle. So the fact that she comes here to put her into she'd look at a 156 plus her allowance. If she shows more of what we've seen in the past, then she has to be a player. So I just think she's one that you really can't write her off, and I fully expect to see her bounce back. And if they do go a fast pace, so if the likes of Flora and Porter goes for it, Dashel Drasher goes from it from the front, Meet and Greet can be prominent. If they start going for this, then this is going to suit and play straight into her strengths, and she'll get £7 from the field. Remember, so obviously they might be achieving the 162. She doesn't need to achieve those numbers. She can run below that, like her 156 that she achieved. And remember, she hammered Dashel Drasher 6 lengths, 2 runs back. And Dashel Drasher obviously only finished in the race, only finished 3/4 of a length behind Cider Burley, and finished in front of Home by the Lee and Flora and Porter. So if you put that in collateral form, just ran if you were running a race on paper, Marie's Rock has a beating of these already. So, but obviously everything is just with a bit of light. So obviously I've talked quite a lot about in context of all of those because I do want to put content rather than just selections. But for me, at the moment, I'm just waiting for the prices to settle. But 4-1 about Marie's Rock, more than happy with that. Flora and Porter definitely has his chance, but is just not on the top of my list. So the ones that I am very interested in still is Marie's Rock is a definite. And then I'll be deciding between price and how I think they've come out of the race between Home by the Lee and Champ. But I might well take the angle with Champ, just have a small cover. But Marie's Rock will be my main bet for the Stayers, because I just think it's a windy division. So right, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, on the handicap, the 4:15 handicap. Midnight River's the top of my list, currently priced between 11-2 and 6-1, but it's a race I want to look at a lot harder before just giving a NAF selection. And you're all ready for the National by now anyway, so let's get to the Grand National selections. Right then, Grand National, as I said, this is a race where I believe that you should be making your own decisions, whether it's once a year. Some people will back 1 horse in it, some people will back 10 horses in it. You can make profit by backing 20 horses in this race. I'm looking through now, and they're currently at seven places each way. You may get that on the day, you may end up with 10 places each way. There'll be all sorts of extended things. I would put some people will go win only. There's going to be gambles on horses today, and then by the time it comes to tomorrow, they'll be twice the price. So just pick your battles, choose when you want to place your bet. Me personally, I think you're good to get best odds guaranteed on the board, and not be scared that they're just going to clip everything. But at the same time, if you've got a price and you agree with it, then take it. So as I've said, all I'm going to do is literally just fire through every single runner and give like a one line on each of the runners, and then I will skip through my selections, and then I will come back to them at the end and explain why I like those selections specifically. So let's do it in number order. I'm going to do it in number order rather than price order. So number 1, obviously this is their horse numbers. Any second now, too much weight in the race. Noble Yates, too much weight in the race. Has his chance, may well end up with soft ground, which will obviously be of great positive for him, but still I believe has too much weight even though he's improving. He's almost £20 higher. In fact, apologies, 166 to 147. He is £19 higher. Galvin, very dark horse. I think he will travel and go very well. Strong chance. Not a massive fan of Davy Russell at the moment as a jockey, but that's not. I think he is one of the best jockeys in the world, but I just think it's a bit like the Ronaldo effect. I think his better days are behind him. Not to say that he can't win a Grand National, and obviously it'll be great for him to go out. I just don't think he's got the same dogfight. So of the first 3, too much weight still. Because Galvin, you breaks all the stats of the weight. Fury Road, not for me. Big Dog, consistent, may place, but has had too many wins to his name. Capodanno, very dark horse. Capodanno I'll leave for now. Delta Work, the more rain the better. Great chance off only £1 lower. Mark, hard to see out of the frame. Sam Brown, I think too much weight. Career best at beating Sham Blue last year. Sam Brown was the horse I was on about, beating my handicap block Sham Blue, but too much weight. Lifetime Ambition wouldn't be on my list. Carefully Selected, interesting runner at a 50 to 1 price. Very unexposed, considering an 11-year-old only had, I think, 7 chase starts. Mikey O'Sullivan in the plate would not be a surprise to see that young jockey go well and to win on the big stage. Cocoa Beach, well beaten last year when finishing 8th. Yeah, well beaten last year, 66 lengths, finishing 8th. Has ran better this year, but comes off a £5 higher mark. No. Longhouse Poet, just don't think has the gears. Gallia de Mesnil was the last one that I knocked off my list, and it's only purely because of the how hard a race he had at Cheltenham when finishing legless. If recovered from that, has a massive chance, although he couldn't win off his mark in the Irish National, which was actually £1 lower than this. Strong chance, but too much of a finishing effort at the National. Durasso, my dark horse. Skip. Ascaria 10, too little too late. The big breakaway, you roll the dice. Could run incredibly well, but loves coming second, so I'd definitely be backing him each way. But he's just not a horse, so he could be pulled up after the first or second. Cape Gentleman, no. Roy Marge, no. Doyuka, no. Wave of the Sea, why he's in here, he's a 2 mile 4 furlong horse. I'm not sure how he's managed to go here. Everyone knows him from the DRF, from when we've had 2 wins out of him. Wouldn't be for me here. Manila Trump, again, this is a very strange, to go from 3 miles up to this. No. Vanillier is another dice roll. I'd expect this to be gambled on the day. Has very, very good chance on his handicap mark. Being an Albert Bartlett winner, no he stays. Question mark is his jumping. And that's not a risk I want to take in the National. He could win. It would not surprise me to see him gambled, but I don't like his jumping. Velvet Elvis has become a dark horse, tipped up by a few. 7 length seconds at any second now gives him a chance. Just not for me. Enjoy Dallin. His year was last year. His form figures this year 0006. Unless he's been the most beautiful plotter around 80 to 1. No. Mr. Incredible, too little too late. Could well win. Will be plenty of people will be on him, but I just think he always stays on when the race is over. If he can get him going, obviously he's under Brian Hayes instead of Patrick Mullins. If he gets him going sooner, then it could well be his day. And he's only a 7-year-old, so he could have plenty more times. It's only his 3rd run for Mullins, so maybe next year's his chance. Mr. Coffee, Nicky Henderson's record is awful in the National. Mr. Coffee hates winning, so it'd be a shock to me if he's anywhere but 2nd or 3rd or nowhere. Cloudley Glen, no. Hill 16, no. Gabby's Cross, strong outside chance, can't put you off that. And it was one that was top of my shortlist for dark horses at 66 to 1. Recite a Prayer wasn't for me. Ava's Oscar, brilliant horse, like one of those Admiral types, a bit like the Big Dog. Could see him going a long way, going well for a long way. But I just think just not at this level to take this. Dunboyne fits in the Mr. Incredible mould for me. Much like Willie Mullins, I think Gordon Elliott, they've either both really well laid these out for young horses, or they're just horses that flatter to deceive. So what I mean is that they always stay on and look like they would have won with a bit further, but gets in here off a featherweight, and it gives Jack Tudor a strong chance. But no. Frankie de Burley, no. Fortescue, no. I think he had his chance. I think he's ran in the National many times. Yeah, he unseated in the Ryder last year. I don't see his chances are any stronger this year. Back on the lash, cross-country horse, born by the sea, an absolute no. So, right then, in summary, for those of you who are obviously the more observant type and managed to pick out the ones that I actually that I skipped over, My strongest selection is, of course, Correct Rambler. I put him up at 33 to 1. He's now sat, he's actually drifting. So he's now at 9 to 1. He could well be bigger figures tomorrow. There's one negative, and that is how much of a mark the Cheltenham races left 4 weeks ago. Bar that, I literally have nothing I can say against him negative. I could say that easily could be 5 or 6 to 1 in this field. Derek Fox is back in the saddle for the ride. He's weighted. He's on the same. He's £1 lower than what Noble Yates won off this race last year. Perfect age in age 9. He's got the run style where he was a lot more prominent in the Ultima. He held his place well. He jumped well. And although he's got no experience of Aintree, many have not had any experience. I think the race will suit. He did idle once he hit the front at Cheltenham, so he'll be delivered late. But I just think that he's now got £10 in hand, so it won't be a question of if he doesn't do it this year, he might do it next year. This is his race, and I think he has very outstanding claims. My next one was not Delta Work, apologies. He was close to being on the list. Was Ain't That a Shame, which I put up at the start of the week at 25 to 1, was in my earlier entry race. Now been backed into around 14 to 1, and that's just because of obviously I'm guessing because of the Rachel factor, but I thought it was fairly obvious she'd be on. Again, I really like the run style. Prominent runner, 9-year-old, 10.5, same mark as Correct Rambler, £1 lower than what Noble Yates won it off last year. Just looks the progressive type. Henry won this 2 years ago. Finished behind the big dog, but just always has looked like one that is just holding a little bit back. In the fact that I said as well, when finishing fourth behind Real Steel, Rachel cracked the horse with the whip in one hand, and he reared all the way across the track, and then it was like, don't do that again, because she switched the whip and then cracked with the other hand and went straight as a die and stayed on all the way to the line. And I think that's perfect before this, just learning and learning and learning and not going up in the handicap mark. I think this horse is handicapped to run a big race, and the thing I like about it, much like Correct Rambler, is to be prominent or in the front few, so we'll stay out of a lot of the trouble. My selection number 3 is La Milos. So La Milos is currently priced around 14 to 1. And Harry and Dan Skelton have literally plotted every single handicap, almost the big handicap, basically what Paul Nicholls normally does. They've took all the big handicap chases on Saturdays, and the fact that they come here with, well, they came in with 2 runners, but they've let Ashdown Lad run in the Topham, and that'll be a horse that I'll back for the top. Well, I have backed for the Topham, and we'll find out how he does. But they rely on just this one runner. He looked home and hosed last time out at Kelso, only to tie up an Empire Steel to go past him. Like, okay, you could say, was he a weak stare? But that was just a peculiar run, and they didn't want to give him a hard time, obviously, with April just around the corner. And that was his first run back. He'd had his last run before that was November, so December, January, February, March. So he'd been off 4 months, and I think that is perfect to blow the cobwebs off this horse. And I think he has such a strong chance for a stable. They know exactly, they might not be a national winning stable, but they're a stable that knows how to lay a horse out for a handicap, and that's what this is. His run in the Coral Gold Cup is massive. That, obviously, don't get me wrong, the horses in behind, most of them wouldn't have been trying. So you've got the likes of Remastered and Correct Rambler finishing in behind him 9 lengths on that day. But obviously coming here, that's winning the Coral Gold Cup is brilliant, and he's gone up from winning the Coral Gold Cup off 146. He's only gone up £6. That is ridiculous. He's only gone up £6. He beat Correct Rambler 9 lengths there. So obviously the bonus for Correct Rambler fans is Correct Rambler hasn't gone up. Correct Rambler's actually, I think, might even be £1 lower. So Correct Rambler's weighted to go very well with La Milos, but La Milos comes here under a perfect prep. And I think at 14 to 1, you just can't argue with it. Keep scrolling down. Right then, so this was my late recruit. This is one that I'm still like on the fence with whether this is right or not. And I'll be 100% honest that if you wanted to knock one off the list, it would be this one. And the reason for this one is the fact that I just see it as it's one of those years where you always have a special moment where you've got a special jockey moment. And I think Danny Mullins has been the absolute man of the hour. I know obviously you look at Townend and stuff, but when called upon, Danny has come up with some massive moments. And he is riding Capodanno. So Capodanno is almost impossible to assess where he sits in the pecking order, in the weights and all of the marks, because he's had such little racing this year, and all his form last year was all in top level graded races. So like 12 lengths behind La Homme Press, 4 lengths behind an on-song Bob Ollinger. Then he beat Lifetime Ambition, which wouldn't give you the form to win something like this. He finished 9 1/4 lengths back behind Janadale. He went from the lead from out in front there, but obviously it was clear that that was just a complete prep for this, and that was just to blow the cobwebs off. And he's almost impossible to assess. He's one of those class horses dropping into a race of this sort of nature. And when I look at the horses around him, like you've got the likes of, a prime example would be, he races off the same weight as the big dog. So the big dog, his RPRs are stuff like 157, 156. Like Capodanno's RPRs, his last RPR after almost a year off is 164. So that, to put that in simple context, that would mean the big dog would need to find £7 to just get close, and that's off big dog's career best, to get £7 to get close to the sort of the level of Capodanno, and that's not factoring any improvement in or anything for him coming on for the run that he just had. So he ran a career best on return, and that was, in my opinion, when he wasn't even, not so much not trying, but that wasn't his main plan. Like last year, you look at Capodanno, and Capodanno came on for the run. In December, he ran his first run around to 147. He achieved a £10 higher run next time out. I'm not saying he's suddenly going to achieve a 174 here. I wouldn't expect that. But if he improves once more and achieves £4 or £5 higher than what he achieved last time, he's going to go close. Obviously, this is a very strange prep, you're taking a lot on trust. He's completely proven over the 3 miles form, but he's got no proof over the marathon trip or in handicaps. But he could just be very well handicapped. And Danny Mullins has won this race before, and he is a man that I want on side. And at current prices of 20 to 1, like, he could well become a McManus gamble on the day, or he could end up being 33s or 50s on the day. But I think he's a horse I definitely want to have on side in Capodanno. My next one is a handicapper, and that is Our Power. So Our Power to me is very, very interesting. Another, again, you'll probably notice that I'm picking out, trying to find the best horse from the yards that know how to handicap a horse. I didn't quite see this being on my radar in the fact that, because of the fact that this horse, again, and you'll see the way all of my selections are tying in with each other. This horse finished 11 lengths behind Correct Rambler at last year's Ultima. Coming into the hill, he was travelling one of the best coming into the hill. But once the others went past, he just accepted defeat and was like, okay, yeah, you've got me. So that to me would have said, okay, maybe he doesn't stay as well as the likes of a Correct Rambler over the 3 miles or the extended 3 miles that the Ultima Test is. However, his 2 runs this year, he has stayed past when looking beaten. So both Danny Carwin and Phlegmatic were well clear of him coming up towards the last 2 fences. And he stayed on past, he's found another gear and he's gone past them. And he has no better jockey in the stay and finish than Sam Twiston-Davies. That boy is what you call a model athlete. Like, in the fitness side of things, if you need a horse to be hard ridden, he is the one. And obviously he was on board last time out when they got up to beat Phlegmatic by a neck. And you saw Skelton's face when Phlegmatic got beat. He was devastated, because that horse is a tricky horse to train, and they'd clearly laid him out perfectly for that win at Kempton, and Our Power had managed to get the better of him. Bonuses for that, because it was so close, he's only gone up £2. So he's actually only just waited to get in the national. He's scraped in as number 35, and he actually, on the trends, it's actually a negative that he's this lower weight. So like I said, he doesn't have the class to win a race such as this, and that may well end up be the case. However, here's a price again where we're going south. He's 22s currently, and he's going further, so he might end up being 25s. He could even end up even bigger. He's just another horse from a perfect handicap mark that I just want to have on side, and I'm very keen on. So how many have I mentioned? Ain't that shame? Lamilos, Our Power, Capodanno. So right, so the final selection. So they are my 5. So my 5 that I'm actually going with are Correct Rambler, who's 9 to 1. Ain't That a Shame, that was 25 to 1 when I put him up in the video, and is now close to 14 to 1. Lamilos is 14 to 1. Our Power is currently 22 to 1. and Capodanno is currently 20 to 1. So they are my 5 selections. However, I do always want to throw in one at a bigger price just because you never know. It's that sort of race. And that is the one that I already mentioned earlier in the week. And I've not gone any... I know obviously it wasn't great form seeing when I mentioned so strongly about Bustleton, about him getting beaten. But at the end of the day, he's got form with loads of other horses in here, including finishing in the same race that Capodanno did. He finished just in behind, 3/4 of a length behind him, and that is Durasso. Yeah, Durasso is an 80 to 1 shot. And also Durasso runs off 10.13. Capodanno runs off 11.5. So £7. Difference is with Durasso is Durasso's already got form in staying handicap chases. I just think he's going to be an 80 to 1 shot or a 100 to 1 shot. And yes, I do have 5 selections in the race, and this would be a 6th, but it's the Grand National. I want to try and enjoy the race. It's the one race of the year that I go each way, but at the same time, you could go win only. But I just think I'd like to have any horse in there. I'd back 10 horses if I fancy 10, but I don't. I've had to be strict and obviously knock a few out, like the likes that left the last minute with the horses like Delta Work and Galliard de Mesnil and stuff. But that is my 5. I'm fairly confident on them, but I've been confident many times before, and I really like that as an outside 80 to 100 to 1 shot. So they are technically my 6 because I will be backing all 6 of those. We'll be backing them all each way. And obviously, I'd love to see Correct Rambler win because obviously he's been my big bet from 33 to 1 all the way through the season. But I'll be doing TriCast, Forecast, all of those sort of things, just tiny bets, just for fun, because the Grand National is all about fun. So, and that is basically it. I said my blog will be out this afternoon for the Grand National, and I've got a bit on it, all 40 runners. It's got very heavy in-depth stats, and it'll have a lot of coverage, so you can make your own choice, because that's what it's all about. It's about picking your own selection. I'm not going to lie to you, I've not even looked at the bumper yet. I probably will tomorrow. Will I have a selection? No idea. I'll have to have a look. But that is it. Aintree Festival done, wrapped up. I don't know how I've done because we haven't even started Friday yet. Thursday we had a couple of winners and a couple of near misses with old Douglas. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. I will tell you now, on Sunday I will be putting a YouTube video out. I've obviously been mentioning this quite a bit over the last few weeks, and a few people have had plenty of messages. I will be going into a smaller partnership sort of thing. It's not going to affect my YouTube. It's not going to affect my Twitter. All my content will remain. It'll all be, you'll be able to access everything. And that's all going to be there. This is just a start for me for Risk for Rewards. I love doing it. It does take up an awful lot of my time, but I just want to just try and help everyone as much as I can. This will be a separate thing. It's going to be a little service on the side that people who just want to get another extra leg up, whether it's through Antepost or just a little bit of help like betting education. But there will be a video out for that on Sunday, and I'll tell you a lot more about it. And it's just going to be brilliant once more, I think, in my opinion. So I hope you have a brilliant weekend. Hope you've had a few Aintree winners. I've been Risk for Awards, and speak to you all soon.